grateful, again, that they took time out of their schedule, so headphones, phones, everything away so we can give them our undivided attention.
So good morning, guys. We just had a talk over at Pennsbury High School East, and I'll introduce both of these women. I'm going to tell you that they will keep your attention and that it is a very powerful message that they have tonight. So our first talker is going to be Beth, and Beth is going to speak about her daughter Brooke. And then when Beth is done, Diane is going to talk about her son Randy. So as usual, if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And I hope you guys enjoy the presentation. Beth?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So my name is Beth Miller, and I appreciate you guys allowing me to share my story. Actually, today is my first time ever sharing my story publicly. So be easy on me. So first, before I get into my story, I would like to, I want to tell you a little bit about my daughter Brooke, just so when I talk about it, you can get a sense of who she is. So Brooke, just got some notes here. Brooke, she was very good in school. She was a good student, pretty athletic. She played softball. She was on the dance team. She was a gymnast. She was a cheerleader at the school. She was in a team pageant in Pittsburgh and came in like 15th there and came in first place for her community services. She did a lot for the community. She volunteered. She put together a walk to benefit the American Brain Tumor Association and raised over $3,000, part of like a graduation project for school. So she was pretty good. I just wanted to show you this picture too, just kind of like a little, just how she's progressed, you know, when she was little and moving on up. We kind of had a normal family, you know, did fun things. Brooke and I had a very good relationship. We, you know, had our Sunday dinners, did all the normal things. Around 2004, we moved, and I gave Brooke, you know, the choice: did she want to finish doing her high school years where she currently was, or did she want to move? And she said she wanted to move, and I said, okay, fine. So, you know, we started the new high school at that time. Fine. I mean, I've always liked her friends. We moved, and I kind of was feeling uncomfortable with some of her friend choices. Started to pick up on a few things that were a little bit different. Some of her personality was kind of off a little bit. She was like a really cool, she had this flair for fashion and stuff, and she always looked really nice, and I started noticing like the way she was dressing and stuff. So anyway, nothing major had happened at that point. Then the one night she was going to a party, and this is, I'll try to condense this a little bit so it won't take up too much time. But it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, and my phone rang, and Brooke, it was Brooke on the other line, but this is what I heard. Mom, she said, help me. So, of course, I started to scream, and I didn't know where she was. So I was trying to find out where she was that I could help her. And all I heard was, in this, she obviously couldn't breathe, was they dropped me off in a field. So I called the police, of course, and we were able to find Brooke from like her cell phone use, I guess it was. Well, let me back up a second. So when she said the field, then the phone went dead. So it just went completely dead, and I had nothing else. So then I called the police, and they were able to pick up from her cell phone use where she was, and she was. She was in a field, half clothed. So she was at a party, and someone had put something in her drink. And she knew that because she said she didn't feel right, and then that's how she remembered, like that's where she woke up. So you can all kind of figure out probably what had happened. So she was taken to the hospital, and she almost didn't make it. They intubated her. She had the breathing tube. When we got there, my family and I, it was very, very uncomfortable to see. She was uncomfortable. It was, my sisters and I had taken some pictures of her, and she ended up being okay with that. And we showed her what she looked like with the tubes in the hospital bed to try and get across to her what had just happened at this party. And obviously you have to make better choices in doing these, going to parties and so forth, and hang out with friends. Brooke, and I'm sure it's just youth, and because when you're young, and when I was young, I remember you don't think anything's going to happen to you. You think you're invincible, and you're going to be fine. And she kind of said that to us. She said, I'll be fine. Like, not that she fluffed it off, but again, I don't think she really understood what had happened. So that's kind of that. Now I'm going to move you. That might have been like around 2010. So that was like 2010. 2011, April 15th. Brooke is 22 at 2011. We were out the night before. We were out looking at cars. We were kind of having fun, joking. We had dinner together, and she was going to a party that night. Of course, I begged her not to go. Something, as a mom, you get these gut instincts on things, and I begged her not to go. She's 22. Can't really keep her and hold her in the house. So I did what I was supposed to do as a parent, and she went out to the party. I got up the next day, to do my normal routine, go to work. And we always spoke to each other every day, several times a day. And I didn't hear from her in the morning. Like early morning, later morning. So I had called my sister and said I didn't, hear from Brooke. And she's just like, Beth, she's 22. Maybe she's sleeping in. She was probably out late. But again, as a mom, you know your routine with your kids. So late afternoon, still no Brooke. So my sister and I, we called around to some area hospitals just to make sure she wasn't, in the hospital. Called her cell phone, it's going to voicemail. So I got home from work, and I said to my husband, I didn't hear from Brooke, and of course got the same thing, she's 22, just because she didn't call you, it doesn't mean there's something wrong. So I called the police anyhow. And I told them the situation, and they just said it's not like she's been missing, for 3 days, so we'll send an officer out. maybe like 15 minutes later, our doorbell rang. And as I walked, and these are just things that are just embedded in my head, I will never ever forget. So we have like a glass door, and I could see that there was 3 people standing there, and the one particular I could see was, you know, in a uniform. And I opened the door, assuming that they were there from the phone call I just made. And they came in, and when they came in, they asked me if Brooke had any like markings or, you know, anything that could identify her. And I looked at them and I said, please don't tell me something happened to my daughter. And the officer, in the most kind way, kind of put his head down a little bit and he said, Mrs. Miller, your daughter's still alive. So at that point, I dropped to the ground and I couldn't breathe. So what had happened was, and this is why I think it's important, somebody had given Brooke, and that person has gone to jail since then. She took them, 2 Percocets. She crushed them, and she snorted them. That's what she died from. No alcohol, 2 Percocets. And I know all this because one, I've talked to the coroner. I read the report. He told me she could have driven a car when it comes to alcohol. So it was not like a mixture of a large amount of alcohol or a lot of drugs. It was 2 Percocets. So, you know, that's what she passed away from. They told me it slowed her heart rate down. And the heart rate, when that slows down, it slows the blood flow down, it carries the oxygen to all the organs. And her body shut down. The place that she was with, at the house that she was with, the person that gave it to her, heard her coughing through the night. And he said he thought that she was coughing because she was smoking. She doesn't even smoke cigarettes. And so he didn't help her. And she died. And he never called 911 till like the next afternoon at like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, so then she didn't obviously look good laying there all those hours. And so, you know, that is what happened there. For me, every single day of my life, I think of Brooke when I wake up. I think of Brooke when I go to bed. I in my head, I will never forget walking to that door when the officers were standing there and telling me that my daughter is not alive. I still to this day do not comprehend it. I look at these pictures and I don't understand that she's not here. I hate that I will never have her at my Thanksgiving table. There will always be an empty seat. At Christmas, she will never sit in the spot that she opens her gifts with her brother. It's just gut-wrenching that this has to happen. most importantly, what it will never clear out of my head is when I read the reports of the 911 call and the autopsy. This is like my daughter, and what I read was, and I don't know how, we're a normal family, and I don't know how, when I read, my daughter was carried out in a black body bag, wrapped in a green sheet with a pillow under her arm. That hurts, and it should be. And I guess my message to all of you are, if you're even just considering a bad choice, or just you just think it over twice. These are 2 Percocets that she died. Brooke didn't want to die. She had a fulfilling life. She didn't want to die. And I don't think she probably thought she was going to die, and she did. And I hope that, I just hope for all of you, and like, I honest to God, like, I almost want to beg you all just to think twice about making a bad choice or a decision. First off, your life is worthwhile, it's valuable, you're loved, and all the people around you, what you have to go through when your child's not here. It's really hard. It really is very, very hard. Thank you for having me.
At the end, you guys can ask questions after Diane's comments.
Hi, my name's Diane. I had a son, Randy, who went to school here at Tendziegloski. We live right here in Fairbanks Hills. And he had a problem with addiction when he was younger. When he was still in high school, he was smoking marijuana all the time. I've been in law enforcement for 39 years. I just retired this past January. And he was a fun kid, a funny kid. Anybody that met him, knew him. I'll pass this around. He was 24 years old when he died of a heroin overdose. And when he was younger, and he would say, we had debates about marijuana all the time. And I brought all my kids up to beware, don't use any drugs, because even marijuana can be laced with something. And I didn't want that to happen. Being in law enforcement, I know what's out there. And it's a lot of garbage that drug dealers use to lace their drugs with. Well, he would laugh at me. He just thought it was hilarious that I thought marijuana was going to hurt him. Mom, it's legal in a state. It should be legalized. I said, but the bottom line is it's not legal in this state. And I'm just very much, it's right and it's wrong. And it's wrong using a substance that's not legalized. So he would laugh at me, and I would get really mad at him. And he always did things with humor, where my daughter would have just said, Mom, just shut up, and left the room, you know. He goes, what am I going to do next? Be using heroin because I'm smoking pot? And I said, I feel it does lead to other drugs. If you're a cigarette smoker, you have a higher chance. If you use marijuana, you have a higher chance of using another drug in your lifetime. You don't know it, but you could have an addicted personality right now, but you won't know it till you get hooked on drugs or cigarettes or alcohol. So, when he was 24, he had a girlfriend that he really loved. He had a car. He had 2 jobs. And he was just having a lot of fun. He told me he was going to live at home forever. He wasn't moving out like his sister did at 18. So, I said, please don't live here forever. First of all, move out sometime. So 2 years ago, my husband and I went down to Atlantic City for the night. Randy still lived at home. We hadn't been there in years, and we just went down for the night. Well, around 9 o'clock, I talked to Randy, he was home. At 1 o'clock in the morning, my daughter called me and is hysterical. She's at the house, all I'm getting is Randy, this, that, I don't know, he overdosed. So she goes, you know, come home, you have to come home. And I mean, we're coming home, but we're in Atlantic City. So I said to I said, put a police officer on the phone. She put the officer on the phone, and I said, you have to tell me before I make this ride, is my son dead or alive? Because I knew overdose doesn't just mean you're dead. So he said, he's dead. And it was a horrible ride home, but it was a lot better if I didn't know what had happened to him, that he was dead. We got home by 2 o'clock. We made it home in an hour from Atlantic City. And I couldn't get in the house to see him till almost 6 in the morning. He died at home. His sister had stopped over, found him on the floor. He had fallen from the couch to the floor. He had used heroin, not knowing that heroin was laced with fentanyl. Fentanyl is a very strong drug that they give cancer patients when they're in hospice, when they know they're dying, they're in a lot of pain, and they use it on a patch. When I got the autopsy report back, which was the most horrible thing I've ever read in my life, when it's telling everything about your loved one, inside and outside, every spot on his body was covered on that autopsy. So, all I kept thinking of was back to 2 years before that when he laughed at me because I thought marijuana would lead to him using heroin. And some people, I know people from the 70s that have been using marijuana since we were in high school. And they have never touched another drug. But if you have an addictive personality, you don't know that at the time you choose to take one pill at a party or drink your first beer. And Randy has 2 older brothers. When he died, they were both, one was in Graterford prison, one was in Bucks County prison. And only after he died, Randy had been to 2 drug recovery programs. He called me at work one day to tell me, Mom, I'm addicted to heroin. And I was like, what are you talking about? You know, I thought he was kidding. He goes, I can't tell you in person, I have to call you at work and tell you. And he says, you have to tell Dad, I can't tell him. And I said, you be home when I get home from work and we will tell Dad. He talked to me every day. He was a nuisance coming in, always giving me hugs. Always, how was your day, Mom? How was your day? My daughter didn't speak 2 words to me. He was my daughter, I always said. He was my girl because he would just chat with me, cook with me, do everything with me. But when he died, I didn't know that he was back after his 2nd stint at rehab, that he was using again. He was born April 7th, and he actually died April 6th. It was his birthday the next day. His girlfriend and him had made plans to spend the day together. But by the time the coroner got to the house, because they were on another call, it was after midnight. So it says, if anybody did notice, that he was born April 7th and he died April 7th.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah. So, I try every April 7th. I don't think about seeing him when I got to go in the house, laying on the floor. 260 pounds. He wasn't a skinny drug addict. And he was 6'2". He was a big guy. And they had taken all the drug paraphernalia away. He was laying on his back at this time, but when my daughter found him, he was laying on his stomach. And they had turned him over. And I got on the floor and laid down there and held my dead son. And just like Beth said, it's just about choices. Everybody in here doesn't have an addiction problem, I'm sure. But the choices that you make are so important. Randy skipped school so many times his senior year, he was not going to pass by any means. They said he could just quit going. Randy went and got his GED in May, and his class graduated in June. After he died, he was a manager at a Pizza Hut, and he worked part-time at the McDonald's that he'd been working at since high school. And he was 24 when he died. His check was $1,200 because he had worked at both Pizza Huts. The week after he died, the girl he worked with, the manager at the other Pizza Hut, brought me his check. So he had a car, he had a girlfriend. I don't know why he chose to do drugs that night. I'll never know. Nobody was there with him. He was there by himself. He didn't know his sister was coming back, and I don't know what made her come back. If she didn't come back that night, I would have found him laying on that floor. And she's just going to have the picture of that all her life. He would have had foamed at the mouth. He had pissed his pants. Because your body just shuts down when you die. And I'm sure he didn't know that heroin was laced with fentanyl. I was told by the police officers that this is something that drug dealers do to entice more of your friends to come buy drugs from them because they have a real good high. He had the best high he's ever going to have, but it was over like that, because as soon as that fentanyl hits your body in the dose that he had, your heart just stops. You're dead. And if him at 6'2", 260 pounds could drop dead from that, anybody in this room could do it a lot faster. So, this Thanksgiving weekend when you're off from school and you think you might go out and party and you're just going to have marijuana, I don't even know what, did you call it marijuana? I would call it dope, and he'd say, Mom, it's not dope. I don't know the lingo anymore, but think about your choices that you take. Because he lost his two brothers that he idolized, and they were both in lockup when this happened. And I know how they felt about it, about him. Afterwards, when I was reading his stuff from Living Grid, where he was for rehab, it had in there, he had to trace a family tree and talk about addiction. And until I read that, I didn't even think about it. I have a brother that died from drugs, but he was in his 60s, so I just thought the life he led, drugs and alcohol out in California, he was always, partying and stuff. I have a brother that lives here, he's a scientist, he's retired, he drinks every day. Never missed his job because of drinking, but he drinks every day till he's drunk. So, it does affect your life, the choices that you're making. And selfish mothers that we are, it affects our life, the choices that you're making. All my kids used to say, Mom, don't worry about it, just like Beth said. Don't worry about it, don't worry about it. Where are you going? Don't worry about it. Well, we want to know these things, We don't want to know to be nosy. We want to know so we know what's going on in your life. And if you can't talk to a parent, like my son called me and told me, second time he went to rehab, we didn't know he was using drugs again. My husband opened his bedroom door. I always knock. But my husband just opens the door. He's sitting there with a needle in his hand shooting up. He couldn't apologize enough, went to rehab again, but still ended up dead. So just think about the choices that you make. Because there is somebody out there that loves you. His girlfriend. I saw her a couple weeks ago. And she has a boyfriend now, and she's engaged. And at first, when I read on her Facebook that she was engaged, I thought, her and Randy were so good together. So when I saw her and I congratulated her because she's engaged now. And she said, I think about Randy every day. She goes, I wish I had stayed over that night. He took me home. He picked her up at work, took her home, and then he went home. But if I hadn't gone to Atlantic City, if she had stayed that night, he could have died the next day or the next day, because he had already made that choice and he was addicted to drugs. So, just think about your choices. So I hope this helps y'all. If you're making bad choices, there is a way out of it, and there are people there to help you with it. Whether it's somebody at school, an aunt, a brother. The weirdest thing is, my two older boys were my stepsons, but they had lived with me since they were teenagers, getting in trouble out in Detroit. And then they sent them to us finally. We wanted them all their life, but they wouldn't let us have them here. So finally, when they give them to us, they're teenagers. And I only gave birth to Randy and Heather. Heather's 4 years older. And Beth, is that the only two kids you have?
Yeah, Brooke was 22 and my son right now is 29.
And it's the oddest thing, because everything I ever said in my life was Randy and Heather, Randy and Heather, Randy and Heather. And now, Randy's gone. And it's just the oddest thing. So, I hope this helps you think about your life. Okay.
Do you guys have any questions for either Diane or Beth?
No?
I didn't know that you could die from 2 Percocets.
You know, and when I tell that story, I usually get that same reaction. And matter of fact, when I spoke to the coroner, and when he told me what she had passed from, I then asked the question about alcohol, because I certainly thought then it was probably the alcohol and the Percocets. And he said no. She was a very tiny little girl. I don't know if that was, maybe her body weight. I don't know, but I totally agree. And everybody usually asks me that same question, and I try to always get that point across. I guarantee you, I don't know, did you ever hear of like 2 Percocets killing somebody?
The look on your face was priceless when she said that.
I mean, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. And, I said in the earlier class, I guess it may be the same thing, that you may be, allergic to a bee sting, you may not. I don't know if it's that, but.
Do you know if her body was allergic to Percocets?
I guess I don't know that. I would almost maybe venture to say that maybe that probably wasn't the first time,
Crushed them and snorted them, correct?
She did crush them and snort them. So obviously that
has a
gets.
different effect.
It does. But that's not unheard of as well. I mean, and it was 2, and it was the 30 milligrams.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna ask that, right? It was the 30s.
But every time you go to a hospital, one of the main questions they ask you, are you allergic to anything? Because they have to know that, because there could be a reaction to what they give you. So when you're taking even legal drugs, but getting them from an illegal place, you do not know if you're allergic to that drug. If somebody at a party or a friend says, oh, you gotta try this or take this, or you don't know what you're allergic to if you've never taken it before.
She was tiny. She was a tiny little girl. Again, maybe she didn't eat. I'm not really sure. But
I had a second question with that. You did say there was an arrest made
there was, and he was in jail.
in jail because he gave or sold
Yes.
her the Percocet.
Yes, and he did admit to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if he didn't admit to it, then yeah.
They could
I
still
mean,
find evidence.
there's that catch-22 when I had, and that's the other part. As the mom, not only did I lose my daughter, I had to then go through that whole process of attorneys, detectives, court hearings. It's just gut-wrenching. It's bad enough to lose your child, and then you still have to keep it all together to go through all that. But, yeah, he was arrested, he was, you know, taken to jail, and like I said, and in fairness, he can't take 100% of the blame because she took them as well.
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a warning to people.
Correct.
You might even think you're doing them a favor, hey, here's a couple Percocet,
It's not,
or making a few dollars, and you could go to jail if that person has an adverse effect, even if they approached you and said, hey, do you have 2 Percocet?
and that is
When you
true.
provide that to them, when you provide that to them, with, no matter your intent,
Absolutely,
when it causes a death or a disability, you're liable for that.
absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that he certainly did not think that was going to happen.
No.
You know, nobody does, but.
But your daughter is still gone and he is still in jail.
Correct.
Yeah,
Well, I
so-
think he's out now, but,
He
yes,
spent time in jail,
He
so.
did, yes.
So that's just something to keep in mind
absolutely,
when you have that lifestyle,
yes.
or even try it once.
Right?
And Beth, I wanted to ask you, that first time when she called you and they had left her in a field, were those friends that left her in a field?
I don't think they were friends, no. What I was told was it was at a party, and I think there was a lot of people at that party. And we never found out who did it.
Oh, okay.
They interviewed a lot of people,
Right.
and nobody, it was
Yeah.
never concluded on that.
I've always wondered if Randy was by himself or if somebody else had come over. I'll never know. And they had left when he died, maybe. And the police interviewed all his friends. Nobody knew anything. So, you never know. Did they really not know anything, or did they know? Did they know he was using drugs again, or didn't they know? I'll never know. So,
I have a question for both of you. If I can start with you, Diane, and then you, Beth. So, what is Thanksgiving like without your son?
not as much fun as it was, because my daughter's not fun at all.
You know it's being recorded, right?
She knows she's not. She has 2 children, she's 30 years old, and she's just not fun. She's not. You know how you want that mother-daughter relationship? I had that with my son Randy. Yes, I had that with him, and that's what I miss. And I say, I always miss, if my daughter comes in and goes and you're going to hug, Mom, don't touch me, you know, I don't like to be touched, don't touch me, I don't hug, I don't do that. Well, she hugged a lot of people the week her brother died, and everybody that came to that door, she would go up to them and just hug them and cry and cry and cry. But I miss his hugs. That's what I really miss.
Same question.
Please.
A flood of emotions, and it's, you know, broke past on April 15th, 2011, and I have to tell you, it does not get any easier. When people say time heals, it doesn't get any easier. I feel like it was yesterday. Thanksgiving, as soon as Halloween passes, it's just a feeling that just stays within me, because again, you go through the emotions for the rest of your family, and you have other siblings and family members that you want to make it, but her seat is always empty, we always light a candle for her, but it's a void in every way. Christmas is the worst for me. You know, the kids always had their spots where they sit. I have to tell you, for Christmas, I've never put up my same Christmas tree, because that Christmas tree involves me pulling out all those ornaments that the kids did. I still to this day cannot put up my normal Christmas tree. I just got just a separate one and started fresh. The holidays are very, very heart-wrenching. It's a family member that's missing, and it stinks. It really, really stinks.
You guys have any questions?
Does anybody in here know somebody that's died of a drug overdose? Wow. And everybody knows about the epidemic, not just in Bucks County, with the heroin. And I think a large percentage of that is that it's laced with that fentanyl. Yeah. That's really sad. When you see how many people put up their hand, isn't that sad? That's really sad.
I think everyone with the hand up too, those people thought they, like, you have your hand up so you know what happens, but it's not gonna happen to you.
Well,
And
of course.
that's right, I
Other
totally agree
people.
with you.
Yeah, but it doesn't take a heavy user, doesn't take someone doing heavy things. I mean, it can be a party when you're of
And I
age.
just, well, we had that conversation driving here, the drug doesn't pick a race, a religion, rich or poor, where you live, it doesn't. It happens to the best of the families, the worst of families, it just, you know, it just happens.
And Randy was always a leader, not a follower. But again, afterwards, I found out when I was looking through his papers from Livingrad that his older brother was the first one who made heroin seem like it was glitzy and glamorous, is what he wrote on his notes. And he used it with his older brother. And he was incarcerated at the time, the older brother, at Graterford. And I called because I just wanted to talk to him myself if I could, because I knew he was going to go nuts in that cell when an officer told him. So the two older boys are my stepsons, I said, but they've always lived with me since they were teenagers. And my son was in the hole at the time. I guess that's like solitary. So you don't get phone calls, you don't get visitors, and he knew when somebody came to get him and take him to the office, he thought his dad had died probably. And they said, "Do you have a brother named Randy?" And he said, "Yes." And they said, "He's dead." And then took him back to the hole. And that's how he found out that his brother was dead. So, again, my son, that son is clean now. He lives in Detroit. He's been clean for over a year. He calls me 3 or 4 times a day, and we always end up talking about Randy.
I just want to make a comment that recently at a training I went to, a lot of communities are starting to turn these drug overdoses into murder investigations, just for, so if you give somebody drugs and they die, you're culpable. They're not just turning it into like a drug overdose. A lot of them are gonna do a murder investigation.
Well, you
So
know, correct me if I'm wrong, I think, so that was 2011 when that happened to Brooke, and the attorney and the detectives had said to me, just a little bit prior to that, I want to say a few months or a year before, they were considered as like a murder or something like that, and then it switched back again, and then it was like the intent to deliver or something, so maybe they're switching back again, I'm not sure, but.
I think it's community by community, I don't
Right.
quite know, but you're certainly culpable if that happens and that person didn't even help your daughter.
No, he
That's
did
even
not,
worse.
right.
Burner coffee.
So the one thing is if somebody does, if there are a couple people hanging out and someone does overdose on heroin, if somebody there calls, they identify themselves, they stay with the person until authorities arrive, there'll be no charges brought on that person because it's such a problem right now. And so we encourage everybody to, just to call to save that person, because they may never be saved from heroin, but there's always that chance. So, but do they look at it as a murder? Potentially, yes. Yes, each time it has to be looked at that way, because when you get there, you don't know what could happen. I would like to say one thing in conclusion with both of these women. I want to thank them personally for being here. Beth, I get emotional. So they came to honor their kids today. Their kids that they can't touch, that they can't hug, that they can't love anymore other than memory. You guys have your parents. You have loved ones in your lives, brothers, sisters. Remember, your life is a gift. And each one of you are a product of love. No matter what your life situation, you have to maximize the gift that you have. You have to work hard each day to be the best you can be. Because if you waste today, when tomorrow comes, the day's over, man. take an opportunity this holiday season to tell those that are in your life that you love them. There's no harm in that. There's no vow in that. When I see my dad, 83 years of age, I shake his hand and I tell him I love him. It doesn't make me less of a man. He brought me into this world. He only wanted the best for me. Your parents only want the best for you. That's all any parent wants, is for you to achieve more than they have. That's all. And to have a good life.
And it's hard for you to go up to your parents sometimes and say, I love you, because you think that's silly. But you don't know what you're doing for that parent. Just to say, I love you, Mom, before you go to bed, or I love you, Dad, or whoever you live with. Especially you guys, it's hard for you to go up and say that, I don't know. But you don't know what it does for that parent.
And these parents can't hear that ever again.
Yeah.
But they honor their children's memory today by coming and hopefully making an impact in all of your lives. So, again, ladies, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you for letting us be here.
If you guys have any questions, we'll hang in the hallway just for a couple of minutes. If you like.
We have the evaluation to fill out, but these two moms will be out in the hall. So fill it out, we'll be out in the hall if you have a question or if you want to say a thank you.
Guys, remember, this is your exit, get out.